Hello, my name is Chad Hart. I'm an extension economist with Iowa State University. And today I'd like to share with you an update on the agricultural crop outlook as we're sitting here in the growing season of 2023. Now, here when we get to May is when USDA releases their first official estimates of what we're looking for in terms of crops this coming year and how we're going to utilize those crops. And so they did release that last week. The idea is around, just before Mother's Day, they released the numbers as we look out there. And the idea is what we're seeing is the potential for larger crops in 2023 and looking to see how much of a rebound we get in demand as we're looking out there. Now, part of the reason we're looking at some bigger crops as we look out there to 2023 has been the planting progress we've seen thus far. Now, USDA tracks our planting progress each and every week. It's part of their what they call crop progress report. And what they do is they sort of summarize how much the crop is being planted state by state and then add that up for a national total. What I'm showing you in this graph here shows you that national total in terms of corn planting progress. In this case, the red line's where we're at here right now for 2023. The light blue area you see in the graph basically shows the range over the past 40 some years on how quickly we've been able to plant the corn crop. And so when you're looking at, on the what would be the right-hand side of the graph, that would be our slowest pace ever. When you look over towards the left-hand side of the graph, that's where you see our quickest pace. And you can see that in 2023, we're running right in the middle of the range there. But when you compare it to that light or sort of bright blue line, that's our 5-year average. And so we are running a little bit ahead of average. The black line shows you our pace from last year, and you can see that we were behind, especially in the early part of the growing season last year. So that's not a concern this year. We actually have jumped out a little bit early, and normally earlier planted crops tend to mean better yields as we get to the end of the year. And so that's part of the expectation here now is that we have been able to get out and plant roughly half the crop here before Mother's Day. And so we'll continue to likely see us running ahead of pace as we're looking out there. And again, looking for better yields as we move through the year. At least we got off to a great start in terms of planting. And that's not just true for corn. We see the same thing when we look at soybeans. In fact, for a while there, the 2023 planting pace was the fastest we had ever seen over the past 40 some years. Now, we have fallen slightly back below that fastest pace, but we're still talking about well ahead of average and well ahead of what we saw last year. And so, at least thus far, the planting pace does support USDA's outlook as we're looking forward here for this year. Now, let me show you that outlook because in this case, like I say, these are their first official estimates for 2023, but USDA had also released some early numbers, call it the unofficial estimates, back in February with their agricultural outlook forum. And so what you see here as we're looking at 2023 is that on the corn side, we are expecting more corn area to be planted. Farmers indicated through the planting intention survey that they were going to plant more area to corn, up to 92 million acres. The yield USDA has right now is 181.5, and that is basically their trend line yield, but it's a weather adjusted trend. So you can think of this as sort of knocking out some of our, especially droughty years from the trend. And so it's a little bit boosted above just a normal straight trend looking back all across time. But when you think about the planting pace we've seen, it does help support that higher yield number. Now, when you put the acreage and yield together here, you get about 15.26 billion bushels, which would be the largest crop we've ever seen. So they're looking for a crop that's bigger than what we saw, especially in 2021, which was the last time we passed 15 billion bushels. So looking at a very large crop coming down the line. So another big question was about the demand we would likely see here. And as USDA released these numbers for 2023, they also updated the demand picture, not only in that outlook for 2023, but what's happening here as we finish marketing out the 2022 crop. And so what we did see them do is that they did adjust exports down for 2022. That added to the ending stocks, and that adds to the supplies we see as we look forward here towards harvest of 2023. And then the big challenge is, would we see demand bounce back given these larger crops? And what USDA's projections show is that they do expect some bounce back, but not as quickly as what we're seeing on the supplies. As you look at the table between 2022 and 2023, you can see they expect feed demand to increase, ethanol to increase some. They're looking for a little bit of an increase in food, seed, and other, but they're looking for a fairly sizable increase in exports. The challenge with that, though, is when I compare these to those unofficial estimates from February, what they ended up doing was shifting more growth in domestic usage. So, in this case, feed and ethanol, and they pulled away on the export side. In February, they had that export number for 2023 at 2.2 billion bushels. Now they're at 2.1. So you can see that they're relying on more domestic demand than international demand. But any way you look at it, the idea is the demand, while growing, they're expecting it not to grow as quickly as production is. And so they do see ending stocks rising well above 2 billion bushels right now, and they do see a much lower price as we look towards this fall. Looking at a season average price of 660 as we finish out the 2022 crop year, but then looking at for 2023, $4.80 a bushel. So that is, again, well below what we saw this past year and also below our production cost estimates as we're looking here. So they are showing that not only are we seeing this margin squeeze now, but it's likely going to put us a little bit below break even as we look at the entirety of the 2023 marketing year. Now, as we shift over to soybeans, it was sort of a similar tale there in that, again, as we're looking at the supply side, the idea is the planting progress is supporting that weather adjusted trend line yield there. In this case, as USDA looks at 2023, that for soybeans, we're talking about 52 bushels per acre. So about 2.5 bushels above what we got last year. Plantings are roughly the same. Farmers indicated not a lot of additional growth here on the soybean side, although I am watching to see if that number changes as we move through June, given the pace that we've had in terms of planting. But when you put the acreage and yield together, we're looking at 4.5 billion bushels of soybeans, again, looking at the potential of a record crop, and again, exceeding that crop that we had in 2021. So again, the course shifts in that looking in that demand that we're looking out there. Now, in terms of for the soybean side, there wasn't a lot of adjustment to 2022. There was a very small adjustment in terms of imports, actually, of soybeans. They did bump that up by 5 million bushels for 2022. So that added another 5 million bushels to ending stocks. And that actually had USDA factoring down that, okay, ending stocks continue to grow. They pulled that season average price for 2022 down by 10 cents to $14.20 a bushel. Still stronger than what we had in 2020 and 2021, but lightening a little bit as we look out there. Now, as we're looking forward into 2023, not only do they see this record crop coming, but they expect those higher imports to hang in there. So we see that 20 million bushels of imports sticking around through 2023, adding to the large supplies that we're looking at here. And so as we look at demand, they show crush demand building. They show export demand, though, still shrinking. And in fact, that's the big challenge here is that not only does USDA see that shrinking, but again, it's sort of the same sort of shift. They added to domestic demand, pulling away from international demand. And they do see the potential for ending stocks to build throughout the 2023 marketing year, getting up there to around 335 million bushels. Still relatively a tight market, but not nearly as tight as it's been over the past 2-3 years. And so they do show, again, as with corn, a much lower season average price as we look out to 2023. In this case, $12.10. Now, that's still roughly 10 cents above our production cost estimate for 2023. So right now, you'd have to say, based on USDA's projections, soybeans are faring a little better in terms of maintaining that potential for profitability as we move forward with the 2023 crops. Now, in terms of global supplies, though, we do continue to expect not only a buildup in U.S. production, but of global production. So we're looking at world corn production here. Again, not only does USDA update us in terms of the new numbers for 2023 US corn, but they gave us new numbers for world corn estimates as well. And as you can see here, they expect sizable growth both in the US and outside the US in terms of corn production. Where we're seeing some of those biggest jumps is in places like Argentina, where there's an expectation of that the drought definitely hurt their crop over this past year, that they will likely return to more normal production levels as we look out over this coming year. But you also see some growth out there as we're looking at places like the European Union. And so, again, the same sort of tale there. Both, you can think of Europe, South America, and North America, the US, did suffer through drought problems in 2022. Those are expected to alleviate as we look forward here with the 2023 growing season. So we're looking at a return to record to near record levels of production, not only here in the US, but around the globe in terms of corn. Now, when it comes to soybeans, the idea is the records never stopped. So 2022, we're looking at a record number there worldwide. 2023, we're seeing a sizable growth in that record, not only here in the US, but especially as we look outside the US, with a lot of that growth again coming from, let's call it again, returning back towards normal in Argentina, along with the continued growth that we see out of Brazil. And so we do continue to see the South American crop grow larger and larger in importance and sort of dominating, if you will, the global soybean production scale. So we are looking at a lot of supplies, both here domestically and internationally. And it's those large supplies that are part of the reason why USDA is expecting us to struggle a bit more when it comes to that international demand. We'll have a lot of competition trying to reach those global markets as we look out there. And as we look at those global markets today, what we do see is that it has slowed down for us in terms of the soybean market, especially over the past couple of months. We have seen our pace of export sales that had been running above our 5-year average fall below here over the past 4 or 5 weeks. We have seen some sales transfer from the US down to the South American crops, but that's typical of this time of year. The challenge here is will we see some additional growth as we move deeper through the summer season? As it stands right now, USDA's projections show that we'll remain below our 5-year average, but hopefully stay, keep the gap about where it is today in terms of our export sales. Now, when it comes to corn, we see a much larger gap, not only compared to the last couple of years, but also in terms of that 5-year average. We have struggled over this past 8 months or so to make inroads in those international markets, and we continue to find those problems here today. And as USDA is looking forward, like I say, they see a bounce back in terms of our international sales, but not getting back to that 5-year average level. As you think about the number they put out for 2023, that would be 2.1 billion bushels. When you look at our 5-year average, we typically finish a little bit above 2.2 billion bushels. So they're saying as we look forward for the rest of this year, we'll stay below average and we'll likely stay there again as we go through the 2023 marketing year. Now, in terms of pricing, though, what we're still seeing is relatively strong pricing on the old crop, maintaining above $6 futures as we look out there towards July, but then a swift drop of about $1 as we're looking at moving into new crop futures. And in this case, I would say the futures market for corn is maintaining prices a little bit stronger than what USDA is indicating. USDA said 480. Futures market at the, basically here at Mother's Day was saying $5. So basically putting us right in line with estimated production cost here in Iowa. So we're moving from a year of fairly good profits, the 2022 crop year, moving to basically break even as we look forward in 2023. Now with soybeans, you see a similar sort of pattern there. We see very strong prices as we look out here for old crop, and then a fairly sizable drop of about $1.60, $1.70 as we look towards new crop. And here's a case where USDA was saying 12.10 for 2023 pricing. Futures market right now is basically at 12. So the futures market has both corn and soybeans right at break even right now. whereas USDA has soybeans a little bit above and corn a little bit below. And so, we are going to see some more challenges in terms of pricing as we move forward this year. But a lot of those challenges are due to the size of the crop that's being estimated here right now. And one of the big things I'll be watching and continue to watch is okay, as we get through planting, the next stage we'll be looking at okay, how's the emergence of the crop going? Do we see a fairly consistent crop growing through the year? So continuing to monitor those supply side arguments there. Also be looking to see if we do get some additional planting of corn and soybeans out of the winter wheat crop, because we may see that some of that winter kill, especially through the southern and central plains, does look, that land does look to move into another crop if there's opportunities available there. And then on the demand side, the question will really be, we see domestic demand holding fairly strong. Can we find some inroads into some more international sales? And I am encouraged by a couple of signs I'm seeing out there, not in the crop markets, but in the livestock markets. As we look at right now, the hog market, we see pork exports actually running ahead of last year's pace. And so we have seen a little bit of a rebound there. Hopefully that indicates that there is some pockets of international demand that hopefully we can tap into as we move forward here with corn and soybeans through 2023. Well, with that, I want to thank you for your time and patience and joining me as we look at what's happening within the corn and soybean markets here in the early stages of planting for 2023. Again, my name is Chad Hart. I'm an extension economist at Iowa State University. Thank you for your time.